Hello, everyone. My co host is with me again. Hello, Demelza. Yeah, pretty girl. Gotta pet her. Gotta pet her. I know she'll probably hop down from the back of. There she goes. Yep, exactly like the last video I made. So, today I want to talk about my reading life a little bit and introduce you to my reading journal. I purchased this because I felt like I needed to do a better job of keeping up with my reading. At the end of a year, I want to be able to go back and flip through some pages and know what I thought about each book I read shortly after I finish it. Because I've gotten into the habit of not writing reviews, or when I'm working on Goodreads and I'm clicking that I've finished a book, I will often just say review to come, review to come, review to come, and the review ends up never coming. So here, at least, I have a few ideas for what to put in my reviews when I actually do write them. So that's something new for this year. One of my disappointments in my reading life is that it takes a lot longer now for me to finish books than it used to. I guess this is the price I pay for my beautiful silver hair. But when I read, particularly when I stretch out on my couch in the afternoon or my recliner, my handy dandy recliner, which is right next to me, I will read for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I will drift off into a nap. And then when I wake up, sometimes it's hard for me to get back into the book. Most of the time I can get back into the rhythm, but it takes me a lot longer to finish. So I always feel a special sense of appreciation for the books that I do finish, because I have gotten a lot. Another thing that has happened in my reading life is I've gotten a lot more comfortable with DNFing. If a book is trying my patience, if I'm not really finding anything to connect with in the story, I will move on to something else, because I have such a massive TBR pile. I have so many books on my shelves, more than I could ever read in a lifetime. And why should I push myself through something that isn't really engaging me? After all, during my academic life, the whole time I was studying, after in all my years of grad school, I had to finish books, even if they were not clicking with me. I had to power through them because, well, I was reading them for academic purposes. But when I'm reading for purposes of pure pleasure and a book is not, in fact, giving me pleasure, why should I keep on with it? I realize many fellow readers will disagree vehemently with this perspective, but to each their own reading life. I also want to talk a little bit about a book you might not be familiar with. This was actually the first book I started in 2026, although it was not the first book I finished. I read it at the same time when I was reading two different physical books and three different books on my Kindle read. So, The Isle of the Silver Sea, The Isle in the Silver Sea, pardon me, written by Tasha Suri. Now, Tasha Suri, over the past few years, has become one of my favorite writers. When I read her books, there's always something interesting going on, something engaging, a wrinkle in a plot or a character that I wasn't quite expecting. So, The Isle in the Silver Sea, if I had to sum it up, after all, when I ask students to tell me what is a book about, or what is a short story or a play about, to me, The Island is Oversea is about the search for agency. And Suri sets up this quest for agency, this drive toward agency, very well with the way that her world is built. The Isle is itself, the beating heart of the Isle, is stories, specifically legends and fairy tales and folk tales that are unique to the Isle. And it is through the archive of all these stories that the health of the Isle and the well being of the Isle and its people are maintained. In this Isle, we have people who are called incarnates. Incarnates are living embodiments of fairy tale archetypes. And these incarnates live out the story that they embody, live out the story of the character they embody over and over and over again over a series of lifetimes. Now, if you're not an incarnate, you can live a fairly happy and satisfying life on the Isle. But if you are an incarnate, you really have no control over your narrative. You are fated to live out that same story repeatedly. And even though you can try, you can avoid, say, the person that you're going to become entangled with in the story. You can avoid that person. You can go out of your way not to meet that person, but it's going to happen anyway. There's just nothing you can do about it. You have to play out the story to its end. And the two main characters in The Island of the Silver Sea are incarnates, the two main characters of a story called The Knight and the Witch. In this story, the knight is commanded by his queen to murder a witch. And he goes to follow the queen's orders. And he finds that the witch is a lot more beautiful and charismatic than he'd originally expected. And they basically whammy each other. As enemies, they whammy each other into falling in love with each other. And their tale ends tragically. They end up having to kill each other. So their tale ends in death. And these two people, Simran is playing the role of the witch, and Veena, which is short for Lavinia, is playing the role of the knight. She's the knight incarnate. She's a female version of the knight. So what we have in this story is a sapphic connection. And this book is very queer positive. You do have a mix of couples, some that are MM, others are FF, and then others are MF. And there's no fuss made about it. There's no questioning. You love who you love. So, nice bit of world building there. But these are two people who are trying to gain control of their narrative. They remember, they have faint glimmers of memories of their past lives where they've loved and suffered and died, and they figure now is the time for us to put a stop to this. We need to take charge. We need to seize control of our own story. And this book tells of how they do that. So, what do I particularly love about this book? Well, I love the world building. I'm fascinated by a world that basically runs on stories. And on the one hand, that shows the power of stories and the beauty of stories, but it also shows the dark side of stories. That in this world, stories have a very controlling nature. And at one point, there are questions about whether the archive needs to be destroyed and what will happen if the archive is destroyed. Is there a way to unchain the incarnates without destroying the stories? So these are interesting questions to my mind. And I do like the two main characters. If I had to say one thing that I felt was a little disappointing about the book, it would be the love story itself. Now, in this book, I've found that the separate characters, are more interesting as individuals than they are as a couple. Now, I have seen, and I want to do a couple of quick recommendations for those of you who are interested in reading particularly well told FF romantic plots. So, some that leap to my mind that I think do the actual love story a little bit better than this book would be K. Arsenault Rivera, The Tiger's Daughter. So, it's such an underrated book. Don't have a copy right now to show you, but very strong book. C.M. Waggoner, Waggoner. Her next to her second most recent book is called the Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry, and that book is so delightful. It talks about a con art. It depicts a con artist falling in love with her mark, and her mark is this wonderful, um, super kind and beautiful half troll woman. And it's a well told love story, but there is also a lot more going on than just the romantic plot. So there's that one. And then another one of my favorites is by Sarah El Arifi, EL-ARIFI. Sarah El Arifi's Ending Fire trilogy. And the first book where the romantic plot really takes off is called The Final Strife. And I don't think that this wonderful African epic fantasy is getting the attention that it deserves. So if you're looking for stories where the love story between the two women is among the most effective parts, then those are some books I think you should check out. But this book has a lot more to recommend it than just the love story. So even if I found that felt a little flat, I still ended up really, really, really enjoying this book. And I would recommend it, particularly if you are a folklorist, if you have a particular fascination with folklore and fairy tales, because there are a lot of references in here. You get references to the story of the Laidley worm, and even Keats's La Belle Dame sans Merci makes an appearance. So it's going to be a treat if you really love legends and folklore. Um, you're going to have a good time with this book. So until next time, happy reading, and may your reading life be blessed.